Adam, good. King, good. Fred. Can't take his Xbox. His brothers. He doesn't give a shit about his family. Can take Fred's money. That's it. Money. Fred's fucking broke. Can't even... Fuck it. Fred doesn't have anything. I'll just kill him. I'm just gonna kill Fred. Fuck it.
Hall of Mirrors, Tales of Horror and the Grotesque. Written and performed for podcast by Mike Bennetts. This podcast is intended for an adult audience. Hello listeners, and welcome once again to the end, the farthest, darkest end of the internet. First of all, let me say with regret that despite my promise of a conclusion to Hair and Skin this week, I'm afraid I rather underestimated its size. It's a big one, all right, and sadly too much for me to edit, record, and get online for you in one big hefty helping this side of December. So, rather than keep you waiting, I thought I'd break it into smaller, bite-sized chunks, something I can spoon-feed into your ears with ease, quivering, dripping, its dark juices running down the side of your neck and staining your collar with the kind of stains that no earthly detergent can shift. But then, fortunately, every Hall of Mirrors episode comes with its own inbuilt cleaning agent, so you emerge from the experience in a haze of bluey whiteness, smelling strangely of summer meadows. Oh, but your mind, listeners, what stains I leave there? Well, don't think of them as stains. Think of them as friends. The kind of friends you want to play with, even though you know you shouldn't. And if they start to fade, why, you can refresh them by listening to the stories again and again and again. Which, of course, is a long-winded way of saying that this week's episode isn't the conclusion of Hair and Skin after all. The climax, and it will be that in every sense of the word, will come when you next tread these damp and rotting boards. What damp and rotting boards? Oh, these ones. Mind your step. Follow me now along this dismal ruin of a pier to the Hall of Mirrors. Ah, the music again. How enchanting. Do you have your ticket? Show me. Getting a little worn, isn't it, my friend? Perhaps we should put a stamp on your hand, or somewhere more visible. A guilty secret you can try to explain to your friends and family. Come, enter. Here we are again, dark, endless, and punctuated by these portals into unpleasantness. Walk with me through the darkness and the spills of light before these mirrors, known to you now. See how they ripple as you pass, or is it tremulous expectation on their part? Ah, here we are, with a few drops of blood on the frame, I see, the gateway to hair and skin. I'm sure you need no reminder of what awaits within, but indulge me as I set the mood. Millionaire chicken magnate Charles Mason has become the proud owner of a new head of hair, consisting of the grafted beards of 2 well-paid volunteer donors, or at least that's what he thought. Then, while sunning his new hairdo on a cruise around the Greek islands, Charles read a newspaper account that really did cause his scalp to tingle with fear, or something. An artist's impression of an unknown man that looked uncomfortably like his personal hair transplantation surgeon, Conrad de Vere. This man is wanted by police in connection with the disappearance of 3 homeless men in London: Stephen Tweed, Colin Bale, and Dennis Wilkins. Upon making the chilling connection that De Vere might have murdered the beard donors and pocketed the cash for himself, Charles developed a splitting headache that sent him scurrying back to his cabin where, following a painful gestation period, 2 swellings on either side of his head burst and started talking to him, telling him to go to the mirror and take a good look at himself. And now, as the glass settles on a screaming Charles, rising from his knees to face his blood-soaked reflection, we have our entrance. Shall we pass through the glass, you and I, into the delightfully gruesome third part of hair and skin? Charles stared into the mirror at the 2 mouths that had burst from the swellings on either side of his head. Both of them drooled blood and black mucus from the center of each of the beards. The mouths gurgled and spat as something inside of each of them worked around, trying to clear clumps of hair and skin from the suppurating edges of their openings. Charles's mind struggled to reason with the reflection that confronted it in the mirror. Mouths with teeth? Oh, dear God, with tongues! It's not possible. It's insane. Oh, my God! Charles wailed. I've gone mad! That's what it is. I've lost my mind!
You've not so much lost your mind, Charles, as gained ours,
said the mouth on the right in a mocking tone.
You're not insane. You don't get out of it that easily. No comfy padded cell for you. No,
hissed the mouth on the left.
No snug straitjackets or happy pills for you, Charles. There's no medication that's been invented that'll make us go away, Charles,
said the mouth on the right.
You know who we are, don't you?
No, leave me alone. Charles covered his eyes with his hands. I'm insane, that's all. You're not there.
Oh, but we are here,
chuckled the voice on the left.
In the flesh.
The voice on the right continued.
You wanted our faces on your head? And that's exactly what you got.
No! Charles screamed. You can't be!
Can't be, Charles,
hissed the voice on the right.
Weren't you grooming us just yesterday? Stroking us and teasing us into a pleasing shape. And wasn't that you, smiling like a Cheshire cat, as your young lady friend ran her fingers through us?
Said the other voice.
Where's she now, Charles? Where's Vicky? Get her in now and see if she wants to run her fingers through your new hairstyle. Yes,
said the voice on the right.
We can all pleasure her together. Really give her some head. Stop it!
Shouted Charles, opening his eyes and forcing himself to look at his head in the mirror.
All right. I think I know who you might be.
Well, permit us to introduce ourselves, Charles.
Hissed the voice on the right.
Just to clear up any doubts. My name is Tweed. Stephen Tweed. And I'm dead.
Charles gave a low moan.
And I'm Colin Bale. And I'm dead and all. Just 2 weeks short of my 21st birthday.
Please.
Charles sobbed.
Please, you must understand. I had no idea about what DeVere did to you. I gave him £500,000 for each of you. A fair transaction.
This remark caused Bale and Tweed to laugh aloud, a humourless, mocking laughter which echoed and reverberated through the corridors of Charles's mind.
A fair transaction,
said Tweed.
Of course. You get a new hairstyle, we get murdered. What could be fairer than that? Everybody's happy,
sang Bale.
They were supposed to pay you,
said Charles.
The money was in used notes, just as you asked.
We asked for nothing, Charles,
said Tweed.
We never even spoke to our murderer. He caught us unaware,
said Bale.
Punched our tickets before we even knew we'd bought them. Sent us to our account with all our imperfections on our heads.
Oh, that bastard! He lied to me,
said Charles.
Oh, poor you,
said Tweed.
Look on the bright side. At least you've got us. Sorry we can't offer an actual shoulder to cry on. Or a sympathetic ear,
added Bale.
But we're here for you all the same, Charles. Forever.
No!
Screamed Charles.
What's the matter, Charles?
Said Bale.
Don't you like your hair transplants anymore? Why not? They've been such a success. Yes,
hissed Tweed.
The roots have grown so deeply into your head.
Oh, please,
Charles whimpered.
Please. I'll get you removed and restored to your bodies. I'll see that you're buried and that you can go to heaven or wherever it is you want to go to.
They laughed again.
Oh, thank you, Charles,
said Tweed.
We'd love to go to heaven, but not before you've sent your Dr. DeVere to hell.
Charles stared into the mirror, his face contorted into a knot of horror and confusion.
What?
He stammered.
What do you mean?
We want you to avenge us, Charles,
said Bale.
We want you to murder our murderer. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Only then will any of us know any peace,
hissed Tweed.
My God! I can't do...
Charles was cut off as both of the voices in his head screamed. The sound was agony, like their vocal cords were entwined with the nerves of his mind, resonating like a dentist's drill in a cracked and rotten tooth. Charles clamped his hands to his head, covering the mouths, but doing nothing to silence their voices, or the pain.
Stop!
He screamed.
Stop! I beg you, please stop!
The voices fell silent as suddenly as they'd started, and Charles sank to the floor, curling into a fetal position, his hands still pressed hard over the mouths on his head.
Kill Dr. DeVere, Charles,
Tweed hissed, his voice unobstructed. Charles moaned and sobbed for a few moments. Then he said,
I can have you removed. I can see another surgeon.
No, you can't, Charles,
said Bale.
We're so much more than just hair and skin.
It was then that Charles felt something tickling at the palm of his left hand, something that felt unpleasantly like the tip of a tongue. He pulled his hands away as though from a flame.
We go a lot deeper than that,
Tweed continued.
beyond the reach of the knife.
Oh, God,
said Charles.
oh, merciful God.
It's not God you want to be dealing with, Charles.
Said Bale.
It's us. And the deal is, kill Dr. DeVere.
And then?
Asked Charles.
What then?
We leave you, Charles.
Said Tweed.
What? Just like that?
Just like that.
Said Tweed.
A fair transaction, wouldn't you say?
Charles's face twisted into a doubtful smile.
A fair transaction. Yes. An eye for an eye.
A tooth for a tooth,
said Bale. Charles began to laugh.
Oh.
We're glad you're so amused,
said Tweed.
Oh, yes. I'm going to murder Conrad DeVere.
Charles closed his eyes, and the voices in his head joined in with his laughter, all of them laughing together as Charles fell away into blackness. For the remainder of the week, Charles remained locked within the darkened confines of his cabin. The ship's doctor, contacted by a mildly distraught Victoria Barnes, called, but Charles refused to see him. He gave him the migraine story and assured him that he knew best how to deal with his problem. Charles told the doctor to set down the bottle of painkillers he'd brought just outside the cabin door and to then leave him alone. Reluctantly, the doctor had complied. Once he'd gone, a few moments passed, then there came the sound of a key turning in the lock. The cabin door opened a crack, and a chubby hand emerged and quickly drew the medicine back inside. Then the door slammed shut, and the key rattled again in the lock with finality. Some complaints were received from passengers adjacent to Charles's cabin concerning screaming rows day and night, furniture being thrown about, glass breaking, and so on. But these rows ceased as soon as Charles was informed of the complaints. On the 7th day, the ship entered port on the Greek mainland, and those passengers whose holiday had come to an end disembarked to make their way back to Athens airport, and so on home to wherever it was they had come from. The captain and the ship's purser made it their business to bid the richer of these departees a personal farewell. Among these was Miss Victoria Barnes, soon to be Mrs. Victoria Tench, and her new fiancé, the silver-haired owner of a chain of hardware stores in the English West Midlands. Also shuffling down the gangplank that day with only the curtest of goodbyes was Charles. In one hand, Charles carried his bulging suitcase, while his other hand was occupied with the task of keeping a straw Panama hat fixed firmly to his head. It wasn't a windy day, nor was it particularly sunny, so why he should have been so concerned with his headgear seemed to the captain quite odd. He exchanged a clandestine raising of the eyebrows with the purser, and reflected inwardly that stranger things had, no doubt, happened at sea. It was 9:30 on a dark Monday evening when Charles's plane landed on the rain-washed tarmac of London's Gatwick Airport. He made his way through the arrivals lounge looking like a man in the blackest throes of a hangover. His expression was grim, and compared to the other people getting off the Athens flight, his complexion was cadaverous. As he strode unsteadily through the crowds, Charles's red eyes were fixed in an unblinking stare at the exit signs ahead of him. One hand was pressed firmly to the now rather crushed-looking straw hat on his head. The other was clenched in a fist at his side, as though it were holding on to his abandoned suitcase, which now rotated, unwanted and forgotten, on the baggage carousel, as Charles stepped out into the night and hailed a cab.
Ladbroke Grove,
he instructed the driver, and gave the address of De Vere's practice. The cab pulled away into the rain, and Charles slid shut the glass partition window between himself and the driver. He sat back and screwed his eyes shut as Bale and Tweed continued to grind their teeth together, a habit they had taken to shortly after their emergence.
"Oh, could you please stop doing that?"
Charles groaned. Tweed's teeth stopped grinding.
"Why does it bother you, Charles?" "You know it bothers me. That's why I keep asking you to stop doing it." "You keep asking us to shut up,"
said Bale.
"It's almost like you don't like having us around."
Charles grimaced.
"Look, why can't you just, please, leave me alone? I beg of you. I'll go to the police. I'll turn in De Vere, and myself into the bargain. We can settle the whole matter legally." "No. Sadly, we're beyond the academic justice of man, Charles," said Tweed. "We only know things in terms of life and death." "That's right. A couple of years in Nick, and then you're out on good behaviour. It just doesn't cut the mustard, Charles," said Bale. "We want De Vere dead, and we're not alone." "What?" said Charles. "What do you mean?" "He's not a victim, of course. Wilkins. He can't be here with us today, but he sends his best regards." Bale's mouth smiled broadly, and Charles winced with the pain. "He's waiting, Charles. Waiting on the other side for the good doctor's demise. Waiting for vengeance," added Tweed. "As are we all." "And so I am to be the tool of your vengeance," said Charles. "Oh, very dramatic, Charles," said Bale. "Yeah, you're our tool." "And then, once he's gone, you'll leave me?" Tweed smiled, again causing Charles to wince with agony. How can we welcome him to hell if we're still stuck on you, Charles? As soon as that bastard's heart stops beating, we'll be gone from you to, receive him,
said Bale.
Reunited, as it were, in death. And then you can be reunited with your toupee again,
said Tweed. Charles felt a wave of relief flow through him at the thought of his toupee. He clung to the thought, imagining it with him here now, so soft and lifelike. As Bale and Tweed resumed the slow, relentless grinding of their teeth, Charles held his imagined toupee to his cheek, stroking it, singing softly to calm its fears as one might to a frightened child.
There,
said Charles through his own tightly gritted teeth.
everything's going to be all right.
Charles was still singing his jittery, broken lullaby when the taxi driver tapped on the partition window to announce their arrival outside De Vere's building. Charles opened his eyes and grabbed at his hat almost at the same time. Then, feeling the hat secure on his head and seeing the cabbie pointing at his destination outside, he relaxed, albeit only for a moment. He set his face in a determined expression and threw open the door. He handed the driver £100 note and waved away the offered change as he turned to look up into the falling rain at De Vere's windows.
Ah, good,
said Tweed.
The doctor is in. Let's go, Charles,
said Bale.
Time's wasting.
Charles took the steps slowly, one at a time, until he stood outside the front door. He pushed the door buzzer next to De Vere's name and waited, staring at the intercom and trying to ignore the excited chattering going on beneath his hat. A few moments passed, then the intercom crackled as De Vere's voice suddenly came through. The hissing of the tiny speaker failed to mask the annoyance in his tone.
Yes? Who is it?
Charles leaned close to the intercom and spoke.
De Vere, it's me, Mason.
There was a moment's pause, then...
Charles? What on earth do you want?
I need to speak to you, De Vere. It's very urgent.
Well, I'm sorry, Charles, but I'm terribly busy right now. It'll have to wait till tomorrow.
That was when Tweed shouted from beneath the straw hat.
Busy eating London's homeless problem, De Vere? Is that it?
For a moment, the intercom just hissed quietly. Then De Vere's voice came back, though whereas earlier it had been strongly characterized by irritation, now it was guarded, possibly even afraid.
Is there anybody with you down there, Charles?
No,
said Charles, willing silence upon his unwanted guests.
No, I'm alone.
There was another pause, then De Vere spoke again.
Very well, Mason. Come on up.
The door buzzed, and Charles, Bale, and Tweed pushed it open, stepped into the hallway, and began to climb the stairs. So, an